Well, welcome back. We're talking about the growing ties between China and Latin America. Let's get back to our panel. And let me start this part of the program with Jiang Shixue. Jiang Shixue, if we look beyond just economic ties, if we look at other things like strategic ties, security ties, you have written that the United States fears China's military ties with South American states could affect security in the Western Hemisphere. Washington is concerned that China might support leftist groups and forces in the region. Explain that to us.
Well, yes, it is true that China supported some kind of left groups. That was many, many years ago, half a century ago. But in the past 3 decades, China has never offered a kind of help for this kind of left groups. So China has nothing to do with any organizations which is considered on the left side. And regarding the military ties between China and Latin America, I would say this kind of cooperation is based on peaceful principles. And China has its own principles for selling weapons, promoting all kinds of military corporations. That's not targeting against any third party. So I would say that China's cooperation with Latin America is in political fields, economic fields, military fields. Yes, that's true, but that's not causing any security threat to the U.S.
Oh, Remi, what is your view? Do you believe that there is some kind of security dimension to China's involvement in the region?
Well, there's always a security dimension to any kind of diplomatic ties between countries. So in that case, indeed, there's a security dimension in the relationship between China and Latin America. There's a strong relation between Venezuela and China. Also, traditionally, China has been closest to left-wing administration, whether Kirchner administration in Argentina, Correa administration in Ecuador. But all in all, the relationship between China and Latin America was much beyond security, and economics is going to be the main driver, and it's already the main driver with different countries. Now, whether it's left-wing government or right-wing government, that doesn't make a big difference for China, and especially for its companies. What's important to understand, however, is that if you want to have a sustained, effective relationship with Latin America, you have to go beyond national government and understand the local politics at the province level or at the local level, because the capacity of a national government to influence, say, infrastructure projects or energy or mining projects in remote areas is much lesser than the Chinese government in China, for example. So there needs to be a comprehensive relationship with every single stakeholders in each country for China to be effective.
I would put it somewhat differently. When you have such a significant economic relationship with a country, like many Latin American countries have with China today, obviously that will not and should not remain simply at the buying and selling level. It will reach other spheres, cultural sphere, political sphere, and in a variety of ways, security sphere as well. That's only natural. It's part of the way nations deal with each other. And I don't think it should be a matter of concern. It's just a natural evolution of things. We're living in a multipolar world. Asia is becoming the most dynamic area of the world in terms of economic growth. There's a book called The Easternization of the World. And there's a lot to be said for that. By 2050, half of the world's product will be coming from Asia. So if Latin American countries want to grow and develop, they must keep that in mind. And that means increasing relations on all fronts with China and with Asia in general.
Well, let's look at a country like yours, Ambassador, Chile. You served as a Chilean ambassador to China. Yes. Now, the economic relationship started out with Chinese agricultural imports, and now we see investments in technology and in the auto industry. How important is all that to Chile?
Well, it is very important. You know, we export twice as much to China as we do to the United States. 27% of our exports last year went to China, so that is a very significant amount. Now, I mentioned earlier the Tianqi investment in SQM. We have not had as much investment as we would like from Chinese companies, and we hope that this will start changing things. We would like to see more of that. Chinese investment has been very strong, for example, in Brazil, $60 billion. Half of all Chinese investment is in Brazil, and also elsewhere in countries like Peru, Ecuador. Argentina. We'd like to see more investment flows into Chile, and particularly technology. We have lithium, we have copper, we have cobalt. That means we might be able to produce batteries, perhaps even electric cars. So many possibilities are open there. And it's very important that we change the dynamic from Latin American countries exporting only commodities and natural resources, which has been the pattern until now, and importing finished goods from China. We need to change it. That is not sustainable in the long run. So we should work on that. And I see both sides very interested in making progress on that front. Let me add just some other point on the Dominican Republic and on Haiti and other countries in the Caribbean. They have significant energy problems. They have blackouts all the time. Energy generating for them is a significant issue. And it seems to me this is an area in which Chinese companies, quite apart from infrastructure, can make a difference in addressing this problem. Haiti, for example, had a major earthquake in 2010. Basically, it still remains to be rebuilt. And here again, Chinese companies can make a significant difference.
Remi, how significant are these political, or let's say diplomatic changes that we've seen? As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the Dominican Republic has become the latest country to cut ties with Taiwan, establish diplomatic relations with Beijing. Panama did the same last year, and as the ambassador told us, we can expect something from Haiti soon. What do you think motivated those changes?
Well, there's a motivation because it makes sense for those countries to turn towards China because of the know-how of different companies, and there was no reason anymore to turn its back to China. Now, again, it's very important to increase diplomatic ties between government, but we need to go further and beyond and understand the society itself, because any investment from Chinese companies reflects either poorly or very positively on the vision of on the reputation of China in each country. You got some best practices in Peru in the energy sector, for example. You got some bad example of mismanagement of investment and sustainable development in different countries. So you want to make sure that you go beyond only diplomatic ties. And as the ambassador was saying, there's very strong opportunities in the energy sector across the Caribbean, whether Haiti, Dominican Republic. There's different refineries in Aruba, Curaçao, a series of refineries also in the Dominican Republic itself that would be in need of Chinese investment, and for which, especially for the transmission sector, you need to be able to understand better the society of each country itself so that it doesn't reflect poorly and actually negatively impact the future of the relationship between China and those countries.
Ambassador, yes. We've heard the kind of sentiments coming out of the White House that we've heard since President Trump came to power, the America First, the protectionist platform that he's been adopting, yes. The tough anti-immigration talk, talk of a wall, etc. Sure. What has this done to, the three-way relationship between China, the United States, and Latin America?
Sure. Well, let me say this. We in Latin America do not look at international trade and international relations more generally as a zero-sum game. I think we should look at the increased diversification of links of Latin American countries with Asia, with Africa, as something positive. We benefit as a result of it. We do more trade, we sell more, our economies are more stable. Let me give you an example. In the 2008-2009 great financial crisis, for the first time in 200 years, a financial crisis that was generated in the North, in fact, in Wall Street, did not wreak havoc in the Latin American banking system and the Latin American economies. Why? Because our economies had been strengthened by our trade with Asia in general and with China in particular. Therefore, we had reserves, we had a strong situation with which to withstand this economic shocks. So it seems to me that's the best example we should look at if we look at the world in a sort of, win-win, non-zero-sum situation. And that is our outlook. We would like to have, my country has very good relations with the United States. We also have very good relations with China. And we think we don't have to choose. We would like to keep both of these links very strong, and we are all better off for it.
Right. Remi, what is your view on that?
Well, I think the key word here is diversification. It's very important for Latin American countries to diversify their relationship with other neighbors, whether it's the United States or also China or the European Union to some extent. So it's important for the stability of Latin America. From the Chinese perspective, the objective here might be to go beyond commodities and go beyond infrastructure and start developing relationship on other sectors of the economy, such as e-commerce or retail. And we're seeing, for example, actors such as Alibaba becoming more and more important in Latin America. America in the logistics sector. This is actually what would make the factor of creation of jobs and actually sustainable growth in the continent, and therefore might be more relevant and more of an asset for Latin American countries and economies to strengthen down the road. So here the key objective is to be able to diversify the investment, and when the investment are in the energy or commodity sector, to do it well by understanding the element of long-term perspective and working with societal actors so it doesn't backfire on the companies investing.
Okay, and that's where we have to leave it. Thanks to all of you for joining us. That's it for this edition of The Heat, but the conversation continues online. Join us on CGTN America's Facebook page to comment on this or any other show, or chat with us on Twitter at CGTN America. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C. Thanks for being with us.